Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Well, so much for that collusion between Trump and Russia. You see, the Russians are threatening to hit back at Trump, strike back at Trump. It's a relatively slow news weekend for Trump. I mean, not all that much happened, folks. Let's review it. We have the Russians threatening Trump and us over Trump's cruise missile attack. By the way, you won't believe this. Mother Jones, the Megan. By the way, greetings. Great to have you, Rush Limbaugh, here. More fun than a human being should be allowed to have. You'll find out why in a moment. Tomahawk missiles are offensive to Native Americans. We need to change the name of the cruise missiles that we launched into Syria because Tomahawk missiles are offensive to Native Americans. What about the Tommy gun? Might that offend Brady? Naming a gun? Well, he might actually like a gun name, but I mean, how ridiculous can you be? This is exactly this kind of, by the way, it's not a joke. They're dead serious. The editor of Mother Jones, and by the way, would it surprise you and would it be sexist of me to point out that the editor is a woman? Oh, speaking of which, you know, I had a story last week, and I mentioned it a couple times. I never got to it because it wasn't at the top of the issues stack. But it is all about millennial men preferring to be the family breadwinners, and they want their wives to be stay-at-home moms. Well, now there's a companion. It's a good thing I saved this, because now there's a companion story. Millennial women re-embrace a homemaker life. Now, both stories from the same website, PJ Media. But we're going to go there. We'll get to those two stories today. Fascinating cultural stuff, as the perception that people have of millennials may not be totally correct. Not saying you can typecast an entire generation, but people have tried to with this bunch. And there's a lot of surprising data coming in from surveys of them. But the editor at Mother Jones, let me ask, is it sexist to me to point out that she's a woman and finds that the name of the missiles that we launched in Syria, Tomahawk, is offensive to Native Americans? She never even talked to Native Americans. She just assumes so. She just assumes. And why do you think that? Do you think it might be all of this talk about we can't say Redskins and it's offensive, even though surveys of Native Americans, the vast majority, have no problem with it whatsoever. They got other things on their mind, or whatever the name of the football team in Washington is. But here's this editor at Mother Jones thinking, she probably, when she wrote this tweet, probably thought she had stumbled into brilliance. And if you look at the Twitter reaction that she got, she's a laughingstock. Her name is Clara Jeffrey. Editor of Mother Jones suggested on Saturday that American Indians are likely offended by the name of the missiles Trump launched this week. And Obama launched Tomahawks during his time. Do you think it ever occurred to this woman anybody would be offended at what they were called? You know what I think we ought to do? Let's change the name. Let's change it from Tomahawk to the Obama class. Let's name some cruise missiles and some drones, because Obama loved killing people with drones. Let's have a drone class and a cruise missile class of Obama type. You know, like we have the Nimitz class aircraft carriers. Why? And we had the Scud version of a certain kind of missile. Why not? You think that might not bother the left to name weaponized projectiles after Obama? I do, too. I think it's a fascinating idea. If everybody's looking for ways we can honor the former president, why not name a cruise missile after him, an entire class of them? Get them ready for when we have to hit Iran. What better? I don't want to laugh about that, because that may actually necessitate or eventuate at some point. She said that the missiles are called Tomahawks. It must enrage a lot of Native Americans. This is exactly why Trump won the election. Oh, speaking of that, I was thinking about, Mrs. Clinton last week had that, I guess she had two appearances last week, one on stage at a Broadway play and another appearance at a women's issues forum. And she explained all the reasons why she lost. Remember, she said the big one was misogyny, that they're just still a bunch of Archie Bunker lugheads in America that just can't stomach, just can't put up with, just would not tolerate a woman president. But did you notice what she didn't mention in the entire list of reasons or excuses why she didn't mention Russia? I went back just to make sure that this memory of mine was correct. She didn't mention Russia in all the reasons why she lost, at least not that I saw. And wouldn't you put that at the top of the list? I mean, because that's what the Democrats all over the country are trying to prove here, is that the Russians tampered with the election, even though there is no evidence for it. Anyway, back to the slow weekend here. The Russians are threatening us and threatening Trump over our Tomahawk missile attack on Syria's poison gas supply base. The North Koreans are threatening to attack us, which is as usual. We have news that Senator McCain and Susan Collins and some Democrats tried to work out a deal to keep the filibuster and ditch Gorsuch. There actually was an attempt to save the filibuster on the premise that we needed to save the time-honored and sacred rules of the Senate. Not a word about Harry Reid blowing them up in 2013 or the Democrats blowing them up in 2003. But that was it. Pretty much it's busier than most news weekends prior to Trump, but since Trump, it's a pretty slow news weekend since Trump has been elected. The biggest story, well, it's hard to say that there's something bigger than anything else. But I'll tell you, Trump is sending the fleet, or a portion of our naval fleet, to the Western Pacific. The Northwestern Pacific. Now, for those of you in Rio Linda, that means we are sending a flotilla to be near the Korean Peninsula, where you would find South Korea and the Norks of Kim Jong, whatever. Now, the important thing about this is that the CHICOM president, Xi Jinping, did not object. Now, after all, China is to North Korea what Russia is to Syria. They are brethren, they are protectors, they are investors, and the linkage is communism. North Korea is communist, China is communist, and so there is a relationship based on that. This is the same Donald Trump, as the drive-by media has been telling us for more than a year and a half, has poisoned U.S. relations with China forever. And yet, the news of the meeting between Xi Jinping of China and Trump, the glow after this meeting is incredible. And I want to remind you again, whoever staged this in the White House knows exactly what they were doing. On the night that we hit Syria, Trump is dining with the president of China, Xi Jinping. And there are photos of that dinner. And in every photo, the CHICOM president is smiling ear to ear. He's having the grandest time. He's probably looking at Mar-a-Lago and saying, how can we duplicate this in Beijing and get away with it? He's probably looking at that place and is stunned by it. And he's just having the grandest time. He's smiling ear to ear, and they post all of those pictures the night of the attack, and Xi Jinping smiling certainly creates the image that he's not unhappy at all with the fact that we sent those Tomahawks into Syria. Whether he's opposed to it or not doesn't matter. But the fact that Xi Jinping does not seem to object to our sending a portion of the fleet to be nearby the Korean Peninsula is fascinating, too. It's amazing what one little military, and as General Keane said, this was limited, very limited maneuver on one target. Yeah, there were 59 Tomahawks, but it was a limited target. There's another funny story, too, related to this. This happened on CNN. They have an anchor there in the afternoon by the name of Brooke Baldwin. And she's typical CNN info babe and anchorette. And she's got this Syrian refugee that she's interviewing. And she just expects this guy to dump all over Trump for bombing his country and creating chaos and instability. It's amazing how this guy got on the air because he did nothing but thank Trump. He did nothing but praise Trump. He went out of his way to thank Trump, and he begged Trump to do it again. And the CNN info babe is trying to get out of it and end it prematurely. He's totally flummoxed by this. Now, I don't have any audio of the CNN info babe, but we do have sound bites of the guy. Grab sound bites number 5 and 6. His name is Qasim E-I-D. How would you pronounce that? Qasim Ed, Qasim Eid, Qasim Eid. How would you pronounce it? You'd go with Eid? All right, so we'll call him Qasim Eid in acknowledgement that we don't know how to pronounce it. We're choosing the best and preferable pronunciation. And so, oh, wait a minute, we don't have him CNN. We've got him on Fox. Let me see here. Yeah, it serves the same purpose. He's talking to Steve Doocy. He says, after having seen the images last Tuesday of the young Syrian struck dead at home from the sarin gas, how did you feel knowing that Trump and the U.S. had finally taken action?
The most painful memory about that attack is seeing President Obama breaking his red line promise.
Stop the tape, Bennett. Stop the rewind it. I want you to imagine hearing this on CNN, because this is where I heard about it. And the info babe is clearly waiting for this guy to dump all over Trump. Why else have him on? They clearly don't want anybody else going to sing Trump's praises. So either they got fooled by this guy, or a producer somewhere screwed up. So imagine the info babe, not Steve Doocy here, but Brooke Baldwin, she's asking the question, and it's essentially, tell us how terrorized and traumatized people in Syria are today after President Trump's attack. Imagine a question like, I don't know if that was the question, but imagine it's something like that. And then here's the guy's answer.
The most painful memory about that attack is seeing President Obama breaking his red line promise, how he let Assad walk away unpunished, and how he lied about saying that he get rid of all of Assad chemical weapons. When I saw President Trump and the United States taking action for the very first time after 6 years of calling for help, we felt happy, we felt grateful. President Obama's inaction, the broken red line, it created the vacuum for ISIS.
This guy lives in Germany now. This is a Syrian refugee named Qasim Eid. It's pronounced Eid, by the way, Mr. At least your instincts failed us. Or did you say Eid? Oh, I thought you said Eid. Okay, take it back. You're right. Talking with my hearing. Qasim Eid is in Germany. So imagine hearing that on CNN, with the info babe thinking the guy is going to dump all over Trump. But he wasn't through. Then he thanked Trump.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, for taking action. Thank you for showing the entire world that you have a big heart and that the United States actually care about human rights and about other people's suffering. Mr. President, we want to go back home. We want to stay in Syria safe. Please help us come back home.
Oh, yeah, that's another. When he was on CNN, the point that he made about not wanting to be refugees in America, he kept hammering that. He kept telling the info babe, we want to go home. We don't want to leave our home. We want to be able to return home. Thank you, Mr. President, for making it possible. Please continue these actions so we can go home. We do not want to come to the United States. We do not want to be refugees. We want to live in our homes. And she was backtracking and trying to get out of this interview as fast as anybody I've ever seen. Now, about his comment here, Obama lied, saying that he'd get rid of all of Assad chemical weapons. It turns out the New York Times has a story, but so much CYA going on today. It turns out the New York Times reporting that the Obama administration knew that Assad did not get rid of all of the nuclear weapons or all the chemical weapons, didn't get rid of them. They just lied to us because that was the easiest route, the least controversial route, the least problematic route. Obama issues a demand that Assad cut it out and get rid of the weapons, and supposedly Assad, quaking in his boots over Obama's drawing of the red line, did so. Now, we've got Obama administration people quoted in this. Oh, yeah, we knew there was some still there. Yes. There's even a story. Get this. Apparently, some Obama administration people are telling the New York Times and the Washington Post they're happy that Trump did this, that they hoped it would be Obama who did it, that they were disappointed Obama didn't do it. At least that's what's in the news. What's in the news is that ex-Obama people in the deep state were very disappointed, and everybody, John Kerry lied, what's new? Susan Rice lied, what's new? And Obama lied. They all knew that Assad had not got rid of these weapons. They just told us that we could rest assured that Assad had backed down to the very manly threats made by Barack Hussein O. Supreme Court back to 9 justices. Neil Gorsuch sworn in this morning twice in private and in a Rose Garden ceremony with President Trump, who had some interesting comments we'll get to in a moment. But I have a transcript here of what Qasim Eid said on CNN. Brooke Baldwin interviewing him via Skype, and obviously not what she was expecting, because her first question obviously is a lead-in to bash Trump in some way. And this guy came back at her and said, with all due respect, I didn't see each and every person demonstrating after the travel ban. I didn't see you 3 days ago when people were gassed to death, where civilians were gassed to death. I didn't see you in 2013 when 1,400 people were gassed to death. I didn't see you raising your voice against Obama's inaction in Syria that led us refugees, that made us refugees, and get kicked out of Syria. If you really care about refugees, if you really care about helping us, please help us stay in our country. We don't want to come to the United States. We want to stay in Syria. With all due respect, this is hypocrisy. He just went right after her. Now, normally hypocrisy doesn't stick to the left, as we have discussed, but the people watching this, I guarantee you, had to be stunned and shocked because of the way this had been prepped. And it's just another one of these incidents where they're going to end up cursing Trump left and right, because every time they think they've got him, Trump turns the tables on them. And it's primarily because of their arrogance and their condescending, snooty attitude. And it comes back to bite them frequently. Did you hear about United Airlines literally dragging some guy off a flight? It was overcrowded. Well, it was overbooked. And United was offering $400 in a hotel stay. They were looking for one volunteer to take another flight to Louisville at 3 p.m. Monday. Passengers were allowed to board the flight. This one guy refused to get off, and they literally had to drag him off. And I read the story, and I said, why didn't they? I mean, we've learned a lot. Why didn't they just offer the guy Pepsi? So I checked the email during the break, and a couple of people said, why do you think CNN got fooled that way? Folks, I think there's a very easy answer. They end up believing their own BS. They create these narratives that are oftentimes just created based on prejudice and bias. And in this case, what's the prejudice and bias? The bias is that everybody in Syria wants out and wants to come to the United States, but Trump is a bigot and is doing everything he can to keep decent, hardworking people who are being denied civil rights and human rights from entering the country. And that's why they're mad. They're not mad at Assad per se. I mean, they are, but their real anger, their real desire is to come to the United States. And Trump's mean, and Trump's Trump himself is a bigot and a pig, and he won't let them in. And these people's lives are threatened. They don't even bother to talk to these Syrian refugees. They just tell themselves that that's what they all must believe, and not just the Syrian refugees. Any other refugee from any other part of the Middle East, they want to come here just like illegal immigrants do. They're going to be future Democrats. That's all part of the thought process here, and so that makes them wonderful and fine. And they never even think to ask them. When they get them for interviews, they even pre-check them. Because their arrogance is such, they already know what these refugees want, because they're smarter than anybody else, liberals and the biggest-hearted, compassionate people in the world, these same liberals, they think they know what the oppressed want. They think they know what every victim wants, and everybody's oppressed because of Trump and Republicans and conservatives, and they're victims because of the same thing. The Democrats are their saviors, the Democrats are their protectors, the Democrats shield them. And so they just assume that, oh, we've got a Syrian refugee from Germany. The guy's going to be great. Put him on the air, and they find out the guy loves Trump, could not be happier over what Trump did, were totally blindsided. And then the coup de grace, the guy says they want to go home. They don't want to come to the United States. They don't want to be refugees. And then starts ripping into CNN for all the hypocrisy. You know, when Trump did this, when the protesters are doing that, where were you then? Where were you when Syrians have been killed by Assad for the last 7 years? Where were you then? Now all of a sudden you act like you're our great protectors. I think it's that simple. Look, I think drive-by journalists, and remember now I have a new theorem that I'm working on. That is, the media is driving this car, and the Democrats are an arm. The Democrats are simply an extension, but the real impetus, the movement, euphemistically, the intellectual firepower of modern era progressivism is all over the media. And they're the ones driving it with their daily 24/7 so-called media coverage. It isn't media and it isn't coverage. It's the advancement of an agenda disguised as journalism. And the Democrats, the elected Democrats, are the war horses that go out and win elections, that get elected to seats where the agenda can be implemented. And look, you're going to have some of the movement's leaders in the Democrat Party, but I'm just saying in general, it's not the media taking talking points and instruction from elected Democrats. It may have been that at one point, but I think now the leadership of the progressive movement is, many of them you don't even know. They're producers, they're editors, assignment editors, other executives who are driving this. And they are not curious people. They are arrogant, and they're full of themselves, and they don't even ponder the possibility they could be wrong about it. In the L.A. Times today, how predictable is this? How often have we seen this? The L.A. Times has a story which purports to be written from the opinion-free middle, and it's a piece of consternation and hand-wringing over the wide gap between the mainstream media and conservative media and their audiences. And it is just, they're practically crying in frustration over this division that the mainstream, and the focus of the story is the Susan Rice story. And the LA Times says on CNN and CBS and ABC, what you have is the entire premise being ridiculed, and CNN proudly refusing to even cover it and telling their viewers to ignore it. Whereas all over conservative media, the details of the story, Susan Rice lying about this, lying about that, requesting the unmasking of Trump transition and administration officials. And our conservative media is driving it. Conservative media is focused on it. Their audiences love it. I am cited as the leader of a massive audience. And they cite that on the left, it's not even a story. Nobody's even curious. And it's no big deal. Nothing to see here. And the story says, this is terrible. This is not good. And it boils down to the fact that we're not all working off the same set of facts. That has become the new word choice, the new sentence or philosophy to express the problem with the new or the alternative media. You heard Ted Koppel in his CBS Sunday interview with Hannity in his whole report that conservative media is the problem, that we are bad for America because we do not devote ourselves to facts. We have simply attracted an audience based on like-minded ideologues. We lead with our ideology, conservatism, and we ignore the facts. The left is nothing but fact-oriented and fact-serious, and we don't. And so their impression or their purpose here is to lament and pine away for the days when we were all dealing with the same set of facts. And what they really mean is they pine away, nothing new here, they pine for the days when they decided, not the facts, they decided what you were going to know and what you weren't going to know and what you were going to be told to think about what you were going to be allowed to know. Their monopoly. It's amazing. They lost their monopoly it'll be 30 years ago in August, the beginning of the end of the news media monopoly. August 1st, 1988. You can trace it back to that date. So after almost 30 years, they still haven't come to grips with it. They do not know how to once again become dominant. And by the way, this is why I believe the media has morphed into the leaders of the progressive agenda advancement, as opposed to Democrats. The Democrats have always had a partisan enemy, the Republicans. They've always, in the world of politics, had a partisan opposition. The media has only had that in the last 30 years. As such, the media has, in the last 30 years, weaponized what they do by attempting to marginalize, destroy, impugn anybody, particularly in media, and the Republican Party doesn't agree with their view of things. But as I said last week, there's no desire to find any mutual common ground because there isn't any. So it's senseless to seek compromise with them or reach across the aisle, show that we can compromise and govern together. In fact, that's all a bunch of garbage. But it's yet just another story in how so horribly wrong things have gone since we can't all be working off the same facts. And it's not facts. It's version. They are still upset they no longer get to define for everybody the daily script that is the daily media soap opera. So they find themselves in this hyper-competitive circumstance. And when they can't win, when they can't put us away, in fact, when our legions continue to grow, when the numbers of people doing alternative media / conservative media continue to grow, it's a constant sign and reminder of what they've lost and what they can't get back. So periodically we got these stories lamenting the old days, like Ted Koppel's and like this in the LA Times today. Anyway, one little brief addendum before we get to the break. An alternate theory as to why Xi Jinping, the Chi-Com president, was smiling all over Mar-a-Lago in every photo taken, even after we had launched the Tomahawk missiles into Syria. It's buried in a New York Times story. Mr. Chen added that many Chi-Coms, well, they don't say Chi-Coms, that's my word. They say many Chinese were thrilled by Trump's attack because it would probably result in the United States becoming further mired in the Middle East. Mr. Chen, who's not identified in a little brief excerpt I have, I'm sure he is in the story, but what little excerpt I have here, he's not. Just have to figure he's a ranking Chi-Com, Politburo type. Mr. Chen added that many Chi-Coms were thrilled by the attack, and if the United States gets trapped in Syria, how can Trump make America great again? As a result, China will be able to achieve its peaceful rise. Do you believe that somebody in China actually said the following? If the United States gets trapped in Syria, how can Trump make America great again? Do you really think that is how these people in China speak about Trump and his agenda? I read this, my red flags went up to full mast. How can Trump make America great again? They won't even accept the premise that America is great, much less sit here and discuss how Trump could do it, except that he's going to be mired in Syria. And as a result, China will be able to achieve its peaceful rise. Mr. Chen said, using a term that Beijing employs to characterize its growing power. Peaceful rise. Even though we say we oppose the bombing, deep in our hearts, we Chi-Coms are happy, because it will mire America and Trump in the Middle East. And that means, how can Trump make America great? I wonder who actually said this, or who actually wrote that at a trip. Okay, back to the phones we go. Going to like this. This is Tom in Mansfield, Ohio. Tom, great to have you. How you doing, sir?
Rush, it's great to talk to you. Mega dittos from Mansfield, Ohio. My wife Samantha and I have been listening for years. We appreciate everything you do, especially the books for the kids. We got sets of those for all of our grandchildren this past Christmas, and they love them.
Well, thank you very much. You know what? I'd like to send your kids, grandkids, what I said, some packages of stuff from the Revere factory. You got some Liberty stuffed dolls here and stuff. So if you could hang on after the call, and
that's awesome.
Right, they'll love this stuff. I guarantee. We have a whole little package of things we've put together that it's educational too. And so if you'll hang on after we finish here, give your address to the Program Observer, and we can move on. Now, what is it that you called about?
Well, in your opening monologue and throughout the first hour today, you have wonderfully explained CNN and their take on how they are in disbelief that the Syrian refugees are not upset with President Trump. And it reminded me clearly of the Arab Spring in Egypt, when I believe it was a CNN reporter there also who was doing everything they could to get positive response for President Obama and getting him involved in the great things that he did. And this Egyptian had nothing good to say about him whatsoever.
That's exactly. I'm so glad you remembered that. I'm gonna see if we can get our crack production crew to get those out of the archives. I imagine that they're trying to find the CNN bites even now. Pretty sure they're trying to find the CNN bites from this weekend. But let me tell you, for those of you new to the program, and there are millions of you who are, because the program's growth is exponential. What he's talking about, back during the Arab Spring, that's got to be 5 years ago now. Long time ago. CNN sent a reporter to Cairo by the name of Nick Robertson. These two bites may be, it's tough to choose, they may be in my top 5 all-time favorite audio sound bites. The Arab Spring was an uprising in Egypt in this particular story. A popular uprising of the people against the current Egyptian government. And the Obama administration, shamelessly working with CNN, tried to make it look like the Egyptian uprising was inspired by Obama and Obama's community organizing and Obama's election in the United States, and how the people had thrown out a bunch of people and gotten this new, young, first African-American president. And the Obama administration was doing everything that it could to say that this Arab Spring uprising was inspired by Obama. So CNN, without having to be told to play this up, sends their reporter over there, and he finds a couple of Egyptians in the crowd. And without knowing what they're going to say, starts asking them questions about how proud they are of President Obama and how excited they are about President Obama and what they would like to say to President Obama. Would they like to thank President Obama for the new jobs programs that would result in Egypt from this Arab Spring uprising? And each one of these guys, Obama's not even here. It has nothing to do with Obama. What do you mean? I didn't even know Obama was involved in this. We are rebelling and we are taking back our... What do you mean, Obama? So he would say, oh, you heard clearly from Mustafa, ecstatic that President Obama supports their efforts here to create jobs. And he would move on. He found the next guy. And he asked the same leading questions, begging for these two Egyptians to praise Obama as the reason they were rising up against oppression in Cairo and in Egypt. And both of these guys just smacked it down. And what was funny about it, well, that's funny in itself, but listening to Nick Roberts try to tell the audience the two Egyptian guys had not said what they had just said. And there you hear it, both Mustafa and Abdul, whatever, say, very happy that President Obama is excited about the prospects for new jobs. He just practically made it up. These guys had just finished saying that Obama meant nothing to this. That Obama had nothing to do with it, but Nick Robertson had to tell the viewers what they had actually heard was these people being ecstatic that Obama was supportive of their efforts. Class, that's a great observation. We will be back. Don't go away. It was at Tahrir Square where Nick Robertson ran into these two guys that didn't see Obama as having any responsibility in their uprising. Tahrir Square is a circle, by the way. Arab Spring was 2011, so 6 years ago this happened. And you sit tight, because we're coming right back and resuming our frenetic pace. I know I've asked this question before, but I don't remember the answer. Anybody in there still watching Homeland on Showtime? Did you watch it last night? So I'm going to talk about this, and if you haven't seen it yet, you should turn the radio off. I'll give you ample warning, because I'm not going to wait until I think everybody's watched the finale. Finale was last night. Just up or down? Up or down? Up? You're kidding. You are kidding me? You kidding me? Up? Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. I can't believe it. This just proves how more important than ever my take on this is, because you like it? Oh. That's she doesn't like they're mocking the conspiracy kook radio guy. That's not even the half of it. Anyway, okay, so that's good. That's good. This means that people do not see what they need to see watching this show. Now, some of the critics watching Homeland have written a bit. There's a big story at Newsbusters featuring an interview with the cast. What everybody thinks has happened in Homeland is that after 6 years of naming Islamo-fascists as the bad guys, that Americans have become the bad guys. And that's only half of the story. That's only half of what they've done on Homeland. This is amazing. And I'll get to it in due course. Greetings, my friends, and welcome. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh here at 800-282-2882. And the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. You know what? It would be unfair. Here I've just teased this. And then to lay it off, I don't do that. So I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. If you watch Homeland, this season, finale was last night. If you DVR it and haven't seen it, and you don't want to know what happened, and if you don't want to be told how to think about what happened, then you don't want to be listening for the next couple of minutes. So it's been 30. I'm gonna give you a countdown from 5. And then after that, if you're still here, I mean, you can complain all you want, but your complaints will fall on deaf ears because you have been warned. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you are still listening and you haven't seen the Homeland finale, you cannot get mad at me now for spoiler alerting. Or for spoiling. Now, the first, was it season 6 or 5 last night? I think it's season 6. Doesn't matter. All of the prior seasons of Homeland have focused on militant Islam, militant Islamic terrorism, as the dire threat facing the United States. And it has depicted, quite accurately, the militant Islamic threat, the terrorism threat. It has explored the CIA and its ways of dealing with this, presidents, entire intelligence community. It has been quite upfront about the threat posed and the techniques used and the efforts engaged in to beat it and to stop it. And along the way, there have been some very nasty stories in the entertainment press about Homeland as being biased and anti-Muslim, just as there were in the tail end years of the Fox series 24. 24 was a great show. Everybody loved 24. 24, I think, lasted 8 years. Kiefer Sutherland and Howard Gordon, who was one of the producers of 24, is likewise one of the producers of Homeland. Now, during the 24 series period of time, toward the tail end of it, there was a very caustic piece written and published by Jane Mayer in New York Magazine, either New York or the New Yorker, I forget which, in which she essentially blamed 24 for the torture that was occurring at Guantanamo Bay and at Club Gitmo, as well as Abu Ghraib in Iraq. She wrote a caustic piece, and it was just one of few, that others had written too about how 24 was horrible because it seemed to sanction torture and it depicted torture. It was un-American. And there were even some stories that said 24 was giving the CIA torture ideas. And I remember when the story was being written and Jane Mayer was interviewing people, people at 24 were not that concerned about it because it was press. All press is good. But it ended up doing some limited damage, but it was part of other damage that was going on out there. Trying to say that the program was biased against militant Islam, that it was unfair. You know the drill. So Homeland starts, and it has the same focus, but it doesn't focus on a counterterrorism unit. It focuses on the CIA and the bad guys. And it's quite good, and it does this for 5 years. Then this season, everything changed. I remember when the first episode aired, I came to the golden EIB microphone. I said, how many of you people watched this last night and are not fuming, spitting mad? Because Carrie Matheson, the Claire Danes figure, who was the only one who never wavered in the fight against militant Islamic terrorism. Some of the others went soft. She was never anything less than 100%, and she now has joined a foundation defending Islamists against attacks, phony allegations of engaging in terrorism. In other words, she's gone from trying to capture them and stop acts of terror to defending those who do it. Overnight. So what am I watching here? And I said, I don't want to prejudge, just the first episode. There was also something else in the first episode. This season began in January, which means that filming was going on all last summer and into the fall. And this season's Homeland takes place entirely between Election Day and Inauguration Day of a new president, a woman. This new president is amazingly Trump-like in that the intelligence community hates her. The intelligence community is trying to undermine her. The intelligence community is working with that kook conspiracy theorist radio TV guy. The CIA is working with him to plant stories, and they even get it right about all the bots on Twitter, all these things that make it look like hundreds of thousands of people are tweeting when only 5 or 6 people are, fake names, they get that right. But this president is portrayed as a lying cheat of trying to capitalize on her dead son who died with valor in Iraq, but it turns out, according to the CIA, that he was a coward. He was running from the fire. He left his buddies to die. It wasn't true, but they made it all up trying to destroy her. She is anti-intel community. She doesn't want anything to do with them. She doesn't trust them, and they know this, so they have their sights set on destroying her. And last night they tried to assassinate her. CIA characters in this show for the first 5 seasons that everybody liked and respected have turned into exactly what we're being told the intelligence community thinks of Trump. The parallels here are uncanny because this show had to be written before Trump won the election. And the show had to be filmed before Trump's transition began. Maybe they shot a couple of episodes or edited some, but it's amazing how prescient this was. In terms of a new president winning, an outsider president. This one, however, is a woman, not Trump, but everything else is pretty much the same. Nobody in the establishment likes her. Nobody in the establishment thinks she knows what she's doing. Everybody in the establishment thinks she has to be undermined. Her staff is halfway clueless to what's going on. She's not clueless to it, but she is not quite sure how to deal with it. Here's the upshot of it. Show begins with all of these characters now being the prime character being sympathetic to Islamic terrorism and terrorists and defending them, particularly those who may end up being falsely accused. It's a total 180. Last night, a plot is hatched to assassinate the new president from within by rogue general working with the CIA. This character that is a conspiracy theorist TV host is working with the CIA to plant lies and falsehoods about her and telling everybody that she's an authoritarian, she's going to be a dictator, everybody's going to end up in dungeons if she's not stopped. You have no human rights, no freedom, the world will never be the same. Identical. Just identical to what stories were about Trump. The assassination attempt fails. Narrowly fails. She barely escapes with the help of the Claire Danes figure. And Peter Quinn, but I haven't mentioned him yet. He's an entirely, take me too long to mention, but one of the primary characters, a CIA agent who has been a hero for 5 years, is killed last night in the effort to save the new president from the assassination from within, in her hotel. She has not been inaugurated yet. She's in her hotel. They take over the hotel. They try to assassinate her. Rogue elements of the CIA, in fact, blew up a building in New York City and tried to blame Islamists for it when, in fact, it was the CIA that did it. I mean, it's exactly what the left would like you to believe is happening today. It's uncanny. At any rate, she survives the assassination attempt, and she sends Carrie Mathison out to tell all of her cabinet heads and advisors that everything's fine. We're going to round up whoever was involved in this and deal with it, but it's business as usual. So Carrie goes home, tries to get her kid back. CIA has arranged for her to lose her kid in the process of all this. And so she's got to get it back from Family Services. And this new president, on being inaugurated, sends her own private police force to round up every political enemy and put them in jail. Saul Berenson, prime character, all sixth season of Homeland, is pulled out of his car at gunpoint and sent to the gulag. The president's cabinet is wrapped up at gunpoint and sent to the gulag. And the closing shot, well, the second to last closing shot is of this new president sitting alone in the Oval Office, a darkened Oval Office, and the camera's pulling away. And she has a sneering smile on her face as she sits there knowing full well that her cops are jailing every political opponent that she had. Not just those that tried to assassinate her. That you can understand. But I mean, literally everybody, except the TV guy. He survives because, you don't, that would be a little bit risky. And if you've seen stories about this season of Homeland that talk about how the big thing to note here is how it's gone from proper understanding of militant Islamic terrorism to sympathy for, you've missed what this is really all about. This show, whether it intended to or not, as I say, the filming schedule, they couldn't have known when they began who was going to be elected. Now, they obviously knew and maybe could do some edits in a couple of episodes. I don't know. But to me, it is clear Hollywood liberals, and it's not just in this show, they believe what they believe, and they're putting together programming based on these beliefs. And so this show made it perfectly clear that the new president, which may as well be Trump, except in this show she's a woman, it's just uncanny. Everything that you've heard that they think Trump's going to do, jail his enemies, deny human rights, all this president is doing. And the parallels, the intel community hates her and is trying to undermine her, just like the intel community hates Trump, trying to undermine him. In this show, the new president wins and the intel community gets thrown in jail, which is the big fear the left has. It's irrational that Trump is some fascist dictator that's going to round everybody up who opposes him and put him in jail. But they believe it, folks. This is not just entertainment. They believe this stuff. That's what makes them who they are. And they're starting to make their beliefs. They're showing up in scripts in these comedies and dramas that show up on TV. And it's very subtle. I imagine many of you who saw it last night listening to me talk about it. Well, I hope you all picked up on it. I hope I'm not the only one here that saw what this really is. This is an effort, whether it was intended to or not, but I don't know how it couldn't have been, to tell every other liberal, yeah, this. We did a show here showing exactly what we're up against here with this new President Trump. I mean, he's going to put in jail every one of us that doesn't like him. He could end up working with these conspiracy kooks. You just never know. And it's going to keep people scared. I found it to be, given what this show has been, unbelievable. Now, I shake that. It's not unbelievable. That's the thing. I mean, it's entirely, as far as I'm concerned, predictable and understandable. When you know leftists like I do, and that they really do believe this stuff that they believe, that this insane lunatic, they believe this stuff. And it's now showing up in TV shows, which I mean, I don't know if you get irritated. Like I have some people, you watch the Showtime show called Billions? It's about Wall Street and big-time money makers, hedge fund guys. And one of the characters is the U.S. Attorney, Southern District of Manhattan. His name is Chuck Rhodes. When Preet Bharara, the actual U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Manhattan, got fired along with the other 92 U.S. attorneys, I had people sending me emails. Chuck got fired last night. Chuck got fired. Meaning the character in the Showtime show got fired. I said, no, the character didn't get fired because the character doesn't exist. Preet Bharara got. My point, people take what they see in movies and they make it real life. People see what they see in TV shows, and oftentimes, I'm sure you've heard people give you remember what Jack Nicholson said in A Few Good Men? Remember? That's exactly what people relate things in scripted TV to real life. So this show last night, some people are going to make the connection. It's based on a lunacy. Anyway, I got to take a break here, folks. Sit tight. We've got more. Don't go away. Welcome back. El Rushbo behind the golden EIB microphone. To the phones, we go back to Jose in Miami. Jose, great to have you. How are you doing, sir?
Pretty good, Rush. How are you? I've never spoken with a lovable little fuzzball, but it's an honor to do so now.
Well, thank you much. Great to have you here.
Thanks. The reason I called is I listened to your description of the CNN interview with the person from Syria, and I was jumping up and down as you were recanting the story because that's exactly how I feel. I'm an immigrant. I'm the youngest of five. I came to this country illegally at the age of 4. But what struck me about the interview is that if all immigrants felt the way he did, that he would prefer to stay in his country and fight, we wouldn't have an immigration problem today. I'm grateful that my dad and my mom brought us to the United States when they did. The oldest of my siblings was active in the counter-revolution in Cuba, and he had to leave in a hurry because they were about to get us killed. So I'm grateful to be here, but had he been forced to stay and fight, and the 5 of us siblings would have been forced to stay and fight.
Well, I know it's conflicting. This guy thinks in Syria that he has a chance to save his country. Cuba, that circumstance, they're all different. One thing about immigration, now this is a fascinating little sidebar to this, but immigration in the southern border, Texas, is practically negligible. Illegal immigration is way, way down. Now, why do you think that might be? We haven't had any policy change, not real. Been a couple, but why do you think that might be? Right away, my points are being proven right to my face here in the break. Okay, one more thing about Homeland. This Ed O'Keefe character who has a TV show who is anti the president because of is not me, folks. I don't care what it is not me. They're not trying to caricature me. And I've not heard anybody say that except one person on the other side of the glass here. Because, well, there is only you in people's minds. They have senators saying, don't listen to Rush Limbaugh. We have Obama saying, don't listen to Rush Limbaugh. On this show, they're saying, don't listen to whatever this guy's name is. But it isn't me that they are probably, what would you say, composite amalgamation. But, I mean, I don't even do TV. Even have a TV show. We've got some audio here, and we've also got Gorsuch, the audio of Gorsuch being sworn in. But we've got the CNN audio of the Syrian refugee that I hyped. Now, one thing that I have to say here, I'd spent a lot of time talking about how this guy really took it to CNN, and sometimes when you do that, you build expectations up in people so that when they hear it, well, that's no big deal. What were you talking about, Rush? I'll tell you how it happened to me. I didn't see The Exorcist for like 3 months after it came out. But I talked to everybody who did, and they told me, it's glorious. Oh, my God, I've never been more scared in a movie. I almost did a walkout twice. So I'm walking in there to watch this thing, thinking I may need to sit in the back row to be able to get out. And I watched it, and not one time did I get scared, thinking the thing was gory, because my expectations had been so built up that they could not possibly have been met. So I hope I haven't done that with you and what happened here on CNN with, this is Qasim. It might even be Qasim, but it's Qasim Eid. And this is the version of him on CNN, happened Friday afternoon after this program ended. And the info babe is Brooke Baldwin. She said, you are supportive of President Trump, and so many people are, but there are also people over here in America saying clearly that President Trump is motivated, as we all have compassion for these just horrible images of these babies who were killed. But at the same time, this is a man who doesn't want Syrians to come into this country with this refugee ban. Hillary Clinton said, we cannot in one breath speak of protecting Syrian babies, and in the next close America's door to them. So, she's ragging on Trump. Trump doesn't care. Yeah, he may have bombed Syria, but he doesn't care about you Syrians. He doesn't want you to be able to come to America like Hillary does. He's still a reprobate, and Hillary should have won. That's the question. And then she says, so Qasim, how do you see it?
With all due respect, I didn't see each and every person who was demonstrating after the travel ban. I didn't see you 3 days ago when people were gassed to death, when civilians were gassed to death. I didn't see you in 2013 when 1,400 people were gassed to death. I didn't see you raising your voice against President Obama's inaction in Syria that led us refugees, that made us refugees get kicked out of Syria. If you really care about refugees, if you really care about helping us, please help us stay in our country. We don't want to come to the United States. We want to stay in our country. We want to stay in our country. With all due respect, this is hypocrisy.
She says, okay. What she wanted was somebody who's going to join her in piling on Trump. What this really comes down to is, and I don't want to speak for Brooke Baldwin on this, I'm just telling you that this kind of question, it indicates they don't really care about the Syrian refugees. They just want to bash Trump for not having a heart. That's all this story was. And that's his point in the answer. Well, if you care so much about us, where have you been? If you care so much about us, why did Obama do anything to help us? Why did Obama draw all these phony red lines and then didn't do anything every time the Syrians crossed them? If you care so much about us, why do we have to go to Germany? If you care so much about us, why do we get kicked out of Syria? If you care so much about us, and what she's trying to do here is get him to dump on Trump as not really caring about them because he doesn't want to let them in the country. So they've got a narrative here, and that is Trump's travel ban, Trump's a racist, Trump's a pig, Trump doesn't want anybody to come into America, and whatever they can do to further that narrative, they'll do, even if it means finding a refugee from Syria after Trump launches the attack. This is exactly how they do it. The narrative here, bash Trump. Trump's heartless. Trump's travel ban. Trump doesn't care. And this guy just rammed it right back down their throats. Oh, and you do? You do? Where have you been all these years? Thank Mr. President. He cares for us. We don't want to come to your stinking country. We want to stay in ours. Now, he wasn't finished. And then she had to end this because it wasn't going well.
If you really care, help us stay in our country. We don't want to become refugees. We want to stay in our country. Help us establish safe zones. Help us stay safe in our country. And if you just give me a few seconds just to tell President Trump once again, please, sir, what you did was amazing. What you did was a powerful message of hope for a lot of people inside and outside of Syria. Please don't stop on this. Please help Syrians stay in their country. Please establish safe zones. Please take out Assad air forces so they won't be able to commit more atrocities using traditional weapons. 500,000 people were killed with traditional weapons, just so people can know what we have suffered in the past 6 years.
Yeah, this didn't go anywhere near as planned. See, this guy was supposed to dump on Trump for bombing Syria with the cruise missiles, the Tomahawks. And you know, he doesn't care about these. He doesn't really care, because if he really cared, he'd be accepting of the refugees and the illegal immigrants. So this is how these people get caught. Folks, I'll guarantee you this. This guy's answer is the last thing any of these reporters could ever guess one of these people would say. Because since they hate Trump, and since they think Trump is all these mean things, then obviously everybody else does too. So they made the mistake in not vetting this guy. They figured, oh, Syrian refugee, gotta hate Trump. Trump won't let him into America. And they got caught. Now, a caller said this reminded him of Nick Robertson. We're going to go back to the graveyard of forgotten sound bites and pick these up. This is February 11th, 2011. Folks, these are hilarious. And it's along the same lines. This is during the Arab Spring at Tahrir Square, which is a circle. And what Nick Robertson of CNN's trying to do here, CNN and the media are trying to say that the Arab Spring was inspired by Obama's election, that Obama inspired people all over the world to stand up for themselves and fight back and take back their countries and blah, blah, blah. So they send CNN's reporter over there, Nick Robertson, to interview these guys that are protesting in Tahrir Square, thinking that all they're going to get is just overwhelming adoration and praise for Barack Obama.
Ahmed, you've been here down on the square for many days. The United States and the international community have just listened to President Obama say that America will support Egypt if it wants help and assistance, and hopes that there'll be a good transition for jobs for the young people. What would your message be for President Obama?
We don't know actually who he supports. He searched for his own purposes, and the Egyptian people seeks for our freedom and democracy. Any democratic country should seek for the people, not for his own purpose.
So were you able to hear all that? Well, the question, the key part in the question was, so he's talking to this guy, Ahmed, and he said, Ahmed, what would your message be for President Obama? So these people are rising up against their own tyranny. And this CNN reporter wants to know what they say to Obama. And Obama's not even on their minds. But because Obama is their God, Obama is their savior, they think everybody looks at Obama that way, including these guys, because they think it's just a bunch of fellow community organizers here doing what Obama did. So, Mustafa, what would your message be for President Obama? We don't actually know who he supports. He serves his own purposes. The Egyptian people search for our freedom and democracy, and he ought to be interested in that, not his own purposes. So Nick Robertson, ever the intrepid trench coat-clad reporter in great Peter Jennings tradition, refused to give up. He continued to search Tahrir Square to find the one protester who wanted to owe it all to Obama. And he found the next one,
Mustafa.
Mustafa.
We just heard President Obama say that he wants to extend support and assistance to Egypt and Egyptians if they want, and he hopes that there are more jobs for the young people in the future. What's your message for President Obama?
Well, my message for President Obama is just we started this revolution without any outside help, and we are going to finish it also without any outside help.
So this Nick Robertson is trying to get these guys to credit Obama because he supports jobs for young people. Mustafa, joining me now. You just heard President Obama say he wants to extend support and assistance to Egypt. They probably didn't hear Obama, but Nick Roberts and CNN think that that's all they're doing in Egypt is watching and listening to Obama. You just heard Obama say he wants to extend support and assistance to Egypt, and he hopes that there are more jobs for the young people in the future. What is your message for President Obama? Well, my message is we started this without any help, and we're going to finish it that way. So, Nick Robertson found two marks that failed to come through and credit Obama for whatever else was happening there in Tahrir Square, which is a circle, during the Arab uprising. But Nick Robertson, in great media form, then sought to tell viewers what they had just seen.
Are you pleased that President Obama has come out, however, now and said he supports this change and supports the people and supports the young people and what they've done?
Well, actually, President Obama's views were kind of conflicting during the last weeks, but now he's saying that he's supporting the change.
I forgot there was one more question to Mustafa. Nick gave it one more go. Are you pleased that President Obama... So here these guys are. They're literally rising up against tyranny, and all CNN can ask them about is Obama. You know, we're sitting here puking when we first heard this 6 years ago. We thought, what the hell is it? We're laughing ourselves silly, too. So now it's time for Nick. This only takes 5 seconds. You got to listen fast here. So here it is. Nick Robertson just concludes by telling CNN's viewers what they just heard.
The view from here is one very happy to now to hear that President Obama has swung behind the people.
That's not at all what anybody said. The view from here, Brooke. The view from here is one of very happy to now hear that President Obama has swung behind the people. So, every news story, how does it help Obama? Does it help? How does it hurt? Does it hurt? How can we make it help Obama? How can we make it all about Obama? Just hilarious. And nothing's changed. Now it's how can we hurt Trump? How can we damage Trump? How can we do whatever we can do to present stories that make it hopeless for Trump to ever be seen in a positive light. Quick time out. We'll be back. Don't go away. Great to have you with us, my friends. Rush Limbaugh serving humanity simply by showing up. And we go to Atlanta. It's Holly. Great to have you with us, Holly. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Rush. Good to talk to you.
Thank you. Same here.
I am a big fan of yours, but I'm also a golf fan.
Oh, cool.
Now, I was sitting at the 16th tee yesterday at Augusta, and it was such a good feel-good moment when Matt Kuchar hit his hole-in-one, and he was high-fiving the crowd. He took somebody's hat. He flung it into the air. He got down there. He got his ball. He signed it. He gave it to a little boy sitting there who wearing a Sam Snead hat. And it just made you feel great.
We saw it. Kuchar is a great guy. You know, he's got he looks like he has a perpetual smile on his face because he's got Joker-like cheekbones.
He looked like a kid at Christmas Day.
Oh, he is. He's naturally smiling all the time. He's really a great guy. I've played Augusta with him, and you'd love him. He's everything you would hope he would be when you meet him. He's an excellent, excellent guy.
But you feel so good, and we leave 16, we walk up 17 and 18 as we're leaving, and the leaders are finishing up, and they're doing their playoffs, and then we turn on ESPN. Oh, we're all fans of Sergio, and I've watched enough golf.
Wait! What CNN is saying? We're all fans of Sergio.
No, I'm sorry, ESPN.
Yeah, you said ESPN is saying that we're all fans of Sergio.
Yes, that there were chants going up amongst the crowd. If someone asked me who I want to win, and I'm at the Masters, my first answer is an American.
What, you're anti-Spaniard?
Evidently. I'm supposed to be global, I guess, politically correct.
Oh, wait a minute. How is ESPN being politically correct by celebrating Sergio's win?
Well, they made it seem like the crowd was cheering for Sergio, and I've been to the Ryder Cup.
Well,
and
they were. I mean, they were. I was watching it. They were cheering for Sergio. I mean, there was no chance for an American to win here because the playoff was Justin Rose, and he's a Brit.
I just sometimes feel like it's not okay to be proud of our country.
Okay, now I understand that. I know. I don't know that I would agree with you on this specific example you're citing about Sergio, but in a generic sense, liberalism always builds up the people they think are victims of America, and that is usually minorities. And whenever a minority wins, it's a special victory because it's a triumph over the evil, gigantic, dominating United States. I know exactly what you mean. I don't think that's what was going on with Sergio. I think they genuinely loved Sergio. It goes back to he came up with Tiger Woods. I'll tell you the thing that got to me, since we're talking about TV coverage. I got to tread very, very, very lightly here, my friends. They interviewed Sergio after his Thursday round, maybe Friday. And they asked him, would there be any special meaning to win this year's Masters because it would occur on the 60th birthday of Seve Ballesteros, one great Masters champion, great golfer from Spain. And I looked at Sergio's face. This is where I have to tread very lightly. But I can't tread at all now because I'm out of time. So I will have to take a brief pause. It's one of these hard breaks. You can't break them, and they don't move. So I'll finish this sometime. I've been delaying this for as long as I can, but I got to do this, folks. Daily Mail, UK Daily Mail, here's the headline. Trump ditches tax reform plan he campaigned on and considers a series of new options, including a payroll tax cut, in a bid to woo Democrats to the plan. This is not what you were told would happen during the campaign. Hang on. Hi, we're back. We never actually went anywhere. We just weren't on the air for like 5 or 6 minutes. They're always here. I mean, practically always here. Great to have you. 800-282-2882. It's the Rush Limbaugh program. As usual, executed flawlessly with 0 mistakes. I saw this headline in the Daily Mail today, and I'd heard allusions to this, but I had not put any stock in it. And here's the upshot. Trump ditches tax reform plan. By the way, let me just tell you something. Are you aware of the tremendous gains in the stock market since Trump's election through the transition? We had some ups and downs, but it's been roaring since Trump was inaugurated. I'm going to tell you why. I mean, there's a bunch of nebulous reasons for market activity that no one can accurately always explain. But there are some things that can logically be said to have a cause and effect. And the stock market going bonkers, no question in my mind, has been related to some extent to the fact that investors and business people have believed that there are going to be serious corporate tax cuts and personal tax cuts create more disposable income, which is money to spend. And the corporate tax rate is way, way too high. It needs to come down. And there's a bunch of foreign money held by American corporations that they do not repatriate, meaning bring back home, because tax rates so high. It would be a stupid financial move to bring the money home instead of leaving it where it's parked in other parts of the world. Because there has been a belief that Trump was going to, and the Republicans, were going to cut taxes, corporate taxes, and personal income taxes, and Obamacare was going to be dealt with in a way that at least improved it. If it wasn't fully repealed, at least it was going to be improved. And for this reason, there has been optimism in what is called the investor community. But now, well, I don't know what's going to happen, because the talk of tax cuts just keeps getting more distant and distant and distant. And remember what I told you last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. Whenever I hear talk of tax cuts, if I don't hear a genuine ideological underpinning for them, and by that I mean if I don't hear somebody explain why they're cutting taxes, if they just say they're going to cut taxes because it's a good campaign promise, because personal reasons, benefits people might get, that's one thing. When I hear somebody say they want to cut taxes because of the tremendous gains and economic improvements that will result, then I know they're serious. Tax cutting is a very integral part of growing an economy. And somebody who ideologically or economically understands how they work would therefore be committed to them on that basis. But somebody who just talks tax cuts because it's a guaranteed winner and it sounds good and it might be expected of certain candidates, they'd be in favor of them, I don't necessarily believe them as much. I mean, there's the only person I know of, at least in my lifetime, who ever campaigned for a tax increase was Walter Mondale in 1984 at the Democrat convention. I have never seen anything dumber. And what Mondale said, he stood up there and he said something along the lines, let me tell you the truth, ladies and gentlemen of the United States. I'm going to raise your taxes. I'm not going to cut them. And President Reagan's going to do the same thing. He won't tell you, but I just did. And I could just see Dan Rather's makeup literally fall off of his face. You do not win promising to raise it. Even liberals are not. They tell you they want the rich to pay more taxes, but not them, not themselves. So my point: every politician campaigns on cutting taxes, but when you hear somebody tell you why they want to do it, and it's deeply intertwined with economic activity, robust employment gains, serious employment gains, and economic growth, and you know they're committed to it. But it takes, look how, it was very hard for Reagan to do. There were two primary tax cuts that Reagan engineered in the 80s. The first one was in his first 2 years, and his second was 1986. And he had a Democrat Congress he was opposing in his first term. It was the only thing that Reagan, the primary reason he succeeded is because he had a 49-state landslide. And back then the Democrats listened to the voters. And a 49-state landslide told the Democrats they weren't wanted and weren't needed. And it told the Democrats that they had to change. The Democrats of today, if they lose in a 49-state landslide, are not going to realize they need to change anything other than the way votes are counted or the way they're cast. But it'll never, ever, they will never think anything is wrong with them. But back then, and even with a 49-state landslide, it was hard work to get this done because spending money is the single greatest power members of Congress have. The social architecture, the various ways you can reward and punish people that supported you or didn't support you in some cases. You can target tax cuts for areas of the economy and people you like, and you can target tax increases for those you don't. But you need a robust tax code with all kinds of exemptions and all kinds of multiple pages of laws. A flat tax, a fair tax, I have never believed I would ever see, because I don't believe these guys would ever give up that much power. It's a power that, until you're a member of Congress or the Senate, you might not be, the House or the Senate, you might not be able to really understand it. But cutting taxes is a major, major bite of the apple. It takes genuine commitment, because when at the end of the day, most elected officials don't really want to do it. And you know why? Well, you've heard the reason countless times. There is no such thing as a revenue loss in Washington. If they cut taxes on corporations, so what will happen? They propose a rate cut. So they cut the corporate tax rate, just make it 20% from what it is now. Well, the CBO is going to get in gear and going to say, how much is that going to cost the government? See, all money is the government's. All money starts as the government's in their mind. And what you earn is what they decide to let you keep from your paycheck. So if the corporate tax rate is going to cost the government, I'm going to just make up a number for the sake of this discussion. If a corporate tax cut is going to cost the government $1 trillion over 10 years, then what they say in government is, well, we've got to find a way to make that back, because we cannot do with less. We will not do with less. You have to. Every time you have to pay more, you're just expected to bend over, grab the ankles, and do it. But not them. Whenever there's a tax cut, they have to find a revenue that they're returning to you somewhere else. And where are they going to get it? They don't sell anything other than land. I mean, they don't produce anything. So the money, when they cut your taxes, they've got to raise somebody's. Some user fee here, some invisible user fee over there, because they just do not do with less. And they score everything statically. So rather than look at how much the economy is going to grow with a tax cut, they only see how much the government's going to lose. And if they can't find a way, if they're going to cut corporate taxes, say $1 trillion over 10 years, the heat they're going to get for doing that from the left is going to be unbearable. And the second thing, they're out $1 trillion over 10 years. They got to go find it somewhere else. So somebody else's taxes are going to get raised. Something's going to happen. Somebody's going to pay for it because the government will not. No matter how bloated the budget, no matter how much we're in debt, they will never, ever get smaller. So when I see the story, Trump ditches tax reform plan he campaigned on and considers a series of new options, including a payroll tax cut in bid to woo Democrat. What's a payroll tax cut? Well, everybody pays that. Not everybody pays income tax. I should say everybody who works pays. The payroll tax is Social Security. It's called FICA on your either your pay stub or your invoice, however you get paid. And Medicare is its own separate tax, not lumped in with the FICA. And it's, it can be as high as 3%, depending on how you organize your affairs. But this is not what Trump campaigned on, and this is not what the markets were expecting. Neither were they expecting what happened with Obamacare. They were expecting Obamacare to get fixed or improved. And all these machinations back and forth about 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, they didn't get involved in that. They believe the Republicans were going to fix it somehow. It was going to be less onerous, may not happen overnight instantaneously, but it was going to get fixed. And tax cuts. And everybody believed that. And everybody believed Trump meant it specifically. He got into rates. The top rate was going to go from 39 to 33. My buddy I tell you about, who's just constantly, he's just bent out of shape over this like you can't believe. He bought it hook, line, and sinker. He's ready to abandon Trump because of this. He's just one guy. I'm not trying to extrapolate, say it means anything. But a lot of people believed this. Trump had campaigned on a rapid tax reform and what they're calling a border adjustment tax, which would essentially be a levy or a tax on imports. Now, all options are back on the table as Trump tries to have a reform plan that will get Republican support. Stop and think of Republican support. That's why he's having to talk to Democrats, because he's getting opposition on the Republican side, just like he had on Obamacare. There are signs the president will be willing to work with Democrats, too, as White House officials hold listening sessions with the opposition. One plan being considered is a cut in the payroll tax, which would benefit middle-income earners and could garner Democrat support. Now, I share this with a caution. This is the media, and it could all be BS, even though it is the UK Daily Mail, which we have found here to be fairly trustworthy. But most of the rest of it, I don't. For example, how many of you think, based on what you've heard in the media, that Steve Bannon is an eyelash from Toast? And that Reince Priebus might not be far behind? I don't believe a word of it. Not a word of it. I think so much fake news in that. And looky here. We have a story from Reuters. Feuding Trump aides meet and agree to end palace intrigue, says source. Top White House aide Steve Bannon and Jared Kushner met and agreed to bury the hatchet over their differences, a senior administration official said Saturday, in a bid to stop the infighting that has distracted from President Trump's message. Bannon, top strategist, and Kushner, influential advisor and son-in-law, met Friday at the request of Priebus, who told them if they have any policy differences, they should air them internally. The development at Mar-a-Lago came at the end of what has been a relatively smooth week for Trump. Priebus' message to Bannon and Kushner was to stop with the palace intrigue and focus on the president's agenda. Both aides left having agreed that it was time to bury the hatchet and move forward. Let me tell you what I think is going on in the White House. I think Bannon stuff, he's not liked. More properly, he's resented. All these insiders don't understand how a guy like that, they don't know him. A guy like that could be number one strategist. Have you seen the way the guy dresses, they're saying? Have you seen the guy's facial growth? Have you guys seen this? Does he wash his hair last year? Have you seen this guy? That's what they're saying. What does Trump see in this guy? He looks like a frumpy character out of Charles Dickens. Who is this guy? So they manufacture this resent. That he comes out of Breitbart News to be the number one strategist. It doesn't make sense to them. And then when he showed up at CPAC and said one of the objectives was to dismantle the administrative state, well, you might as well have shown Dracula the cross. They went bonkers. I think what is going on, there was a Washington Post story 3 weeks ago now, which said that the real battle in the White House is between Trump advisors who are Democrats and the Priebus-Bannon faction, and that on the Democrat side is Jared Kushner and his wife Ivanka, and with Gary Cohn from Goldman Sachs and Dina Powell. Now, I think that is going on, but it's not unusual. There are in any White House, you have the king, and then you have the underlings, and they all want to be the go-to underling. They all want to be known of and thought of as strategist number one. They all want to be thought of as the favorite. And then they've got disagreeing principles and ideas. I think that battle is probably legit for Trump's ear. But at the same time, Trump is not indecisive. He doesn't know what he doesn't think. Meaning he's not running around asking people what he should do. What's going on is people trying to talk him out of being who he is because they would rather he not succeed being that. And then there are people he's chosen to work with him. And then there are people trying to encourage him to be who he is and to keep him and reminding him. I think it's common. Presidents win elections and then they overcome it. I'm president of all the people. Now I have to reach out even to those that didn't vote for me. And it happens to every one of them. And then there's a faction in there. Do not forget who brung you. Do not forget. And that's the battle going on in there. But this, and I don't think it's anything unusual. I have to take a break here. I'm not through with this, but I have to stop now. So I just got an email. And the email says, the subject line is, I'm kind of freaking out right now. So, oh, no. What happened? I don't know. It's in the public email account, so it wouldn't be anything like the cat got sick. So I'm kind of free. So, person says, I just checked my Twitter feed, and it's everything you've said in the first 2 hours of your show, and nobody is giving you credit. Everybody's tweeting their thoughts, and it's all echoing the first 2 hours of your show. And I said, you're just now noticing how that works? Anyhow, look, something seems commonsensical to me, and that is that Trump cannot abandon the people who elected him, the people who showed up at his rallies, the people who helped him raise money. He cannot. He doesn't need advisors to tell him that. Why is it that we think, and this is just a generic question, why do we think, let's say you love Trump, you voted for Trump, you think Trump's the greatest, he's smart, he's not an idiot. Why? What is it that allows you to think that he might abandon you? What is it that makes you think he might forget who got him elected? Well, no, there are answers to that, but it's an interesting psychological question. You're probably going to see stories over the next another break. Now, I'm going to go back to my Sergio Garcia story. We had a caller from Atlanta who was upset. She thought ESPN was showing undue favoritism to Sergio because he wasn't American. And she's tired of watching CNN and ESPN and all these networks who seem to want to blame America and celebrate when America loses or when an American loses or when a minority or some other country sports star wins. I told her I disagreed with her. That's what was happening here with Sergio and ESPN. But in generic sense, she is right. I mean, the left always sides up with whoever they think the victim is. And the Americans are always the victimizers. And minorities are usually the victims. Any kind of minority. Numeric, racial, gender. Any minority is automatically a victim. And CNN, the media, always will sidle up to that person. And she detected it, and she's right about that. But here's what I noticed. And this is, to me, this is classic, folks. This is an object lesson in how stories are created. Sergio Garcia is from España, Spain. There are two other accomplished professional golfers from España. One is Seve Ballesteros, who died very early in life, age 60, and Jose Maria Olazabal. And both Seve and Jose Maria have won Augusta, the Masters, twice. So on Friday, after Friday's round, the media, whoever covering it, CBS or ESPN, is interviewing Sergio. And I'm watching all during the coverage. I watch it when I got home, and they keep talking every time they show Sergio, or practically every time. They mention, isn't it going to be so touching and heartwarming? If Sergio were to win on Sunday, that's the 60th birthday of Seve Ballesteros. I say, yeah, so what? What does it matter? Except it's manufactured tearjerker. It's manufactured sentiment. And they forced it on Sergio. In an interview Friday, they're asking Sergio, would it mean something special? Would it be even more special to win this on Seve's 60th birthday? And I could tell, looking at the immediate facial reaction from Sergio Garcia, it was a fleeting moment. But he bowed his head in just a tiny expression of mini frustration. He looked down, and he came back up. Look, I don't want to get ahead of myself. We don't talk about winning until we've won. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But wouldn't it be wonderful, Sergio, if you won? Well, I love Seve. Seve's great. And then he immediately started talking about Jose Maria Olazabal. Jose is more of a contemporary of Sergio's, and Jose had tweeted him his support and how proud of him he was. Now, my only point, Sergio he was close to Seve, but my guess is, purely a guess, that this is why I'm on thin ice here. I'm walking a very, very narrow line here with this. But it's all because that facial expression I'm sure I saw. There was no way Sergio was going to say, look, Seve isn't here. Seve is not swinging the club. Seve's spirit is not determining my strategy. I'm the one playing. But they all loved Seve. And there's nothing wrong with Seve. Don't misunderstand. My point here is how a story of sentiment and emotion gets created and then forced on people, and they have to attach themselves to it. Because there's no way Sergio can say, I don't care that it's Seve's 60th birthday or his 160th. I'm playing, and if I win, I win. He can't say that. I don't even know if he thought that. And to tell you how effective this is, I played golf Saturday and Sunday. I got out of the car both days at the place I'm playing, two different places. And the bag drop guys and the caddies, wouldn't it be great if Sergio won on Seve's 60th? Oh, jeez. Can't escape it. And to me, maybe I'm too into this stuff, or maybe But this is how it happens. This is how, in this case, it's innocent in a sense. But this is how stories that do not exist are manufactured, and people are plugged into them and then have to go along with it. Because if you don't go along with this, what kind of reprobate are you? And as another aside, whenever Sergio got the chance to talk about Jose Maria Olazabal, he did, because none of them were talking about him. It was all Sevi. They loved Sevi. I met Sevi. Sevi Gary Player had a tournament at Wayne Huizenga's course up in Palm City for a long, long time. That's where I met Catherine, by the way. She was running Gary Player's foundation and running the tournament. And she thought I was too controversial to attend, but somebody told her that it would be a good get. So she invited me, and I went. And the second year, I'm sitting next to Patrick Duffy. All the celebrities are lined up, and Sevi Ballesteros, one of the greatest golfers of all time, is putting on a demonstration how to get out of a sand trap. And he couldn't. It was the most amazing thing. Gary Player had to jump in the trap and take over the demo. Sevi was just having a bad day, couldn't get out of it. And he'd been retired, and I think he had just beginnings of his illness. But he was just prince of a guy, nice guy. I don't want anybody to misunderstand me here. It's just that Sevi's birthday had nothing to do with Jose winning this, or with Sergio winning this. But everybody hope, they want to believe that there was an extra inspiration for it. Okay, that's it. I'll be prepared. Yes, I did. I'm going to get beat up like you haven't seen for this. Well, by all the left-wing comedians, there's going to be, Rush, have you no soul? Do you have no soul? Do you have not 1 ounce of compassion? Not one? Do you have to find a liberal communist behind every golf? Some such thing. And this is not with liberalism or communism. This is how media works. How media manufactures stories and plugs everybody into it, whether they want to be part of it or not. I can give you countless other examples. I mean, we're going to see things like this. It happens every day in politics, these kind of things that add sentiment that's supposed to touch your heart so that you can't object to it. You can't disagree with it. You can't reject it in any way. In this case, it's harmless. But when you start talking about political events and other things, it can be like gay marriage or like anything that's a cultural upheaval. This is how it's done. I got to go. Quick break. Sean Spicer at the White House Daily Briefing today said that all of these stories saying that President Trump has scrapped his tax plan are not true. Like this UK Daily Mail story, not true. They are just now gearing up for the tax reform push, and there's no truth to this business that Trump has thrown out what he campaigned on. So there you have it, straight from the press secretary, Sean Spicer. Here's Jim in St. Genevieve, Missouri. Great to have you, Jim. How are you doing, sir?
Rush. St. Genevieve, Missouri dittos, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your calling.
Rush, I have a little bit different take on Homeland. I think the season was written fully expecting Hillary to be president. I honestly think it reveals the liberal playbook had she been our president right now. Imagine for a second that she's president today. I would argue those same Soros-backed people that have been protesting Trump all these months would actually be out there masquerading as right-wing conservatives and violently protesting Hillary. And the reason for that is because they're out to demonize you even more.
Wait a minute now. Hold it a minute. I disagree with you there. However, when you say that this was written and produced with the idea that Hillary was going to win, you're on to something. So they have this first president, the intel community's trying to undermine her, and everybody's trying to undermine her. And so she gets revenge by jailing them all. Okay, I'll think about it from that perspective. You may have a point, but where I differ from you, I don't think that Soros and Think Progress and all that would fake massive protest against her. It doesn't look good no matter what. All to be able to tell a story that the protesters are fake. I think they would present no protest at all. I think any protest of Hillary in real life would be ignored, and she'd be portrayed as the next Obama, and they would start savaging any opponents to Hillary, including me, whoever, wherever they are. But that's the only thing I disagree with you. I don't think they would have fake protests to the degree we saw them in Homeland.
But I think that they anticipated so much uprising against Hillary that they would have done something, or maybe it would have been organically made by the right.
Wait, I disagree. Again, I'm sorry, but they thought she's going to win in a landslide. Remember, they lied to themselves. They love Hillary. They therefore think everybody did. That's why they're still shell-shocked. Anyway, I'm glad you called because I appreciate this perspective on this. I'm going to have to think further about this now. Yeah, I know we didn't get to the Gorsuch, but all it was sound bites. I mean, we know you've sworn in. We'll do that tomorrow. The millennial stuff, that's still got to get to that. That's fascinating. We'll try to find out what's going on with tax cuts and whatever else happens between now and then. You can count on the fact that we'll be first, we'll be on top of it, and we'll be the only place you need to go to hear about it. See you next time.